Right? Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Editing Boot Camp. We're back here to give you some information on how we teach our authors and ghostwriters to edit and how we bring on new editors within our company. I'm Tracey Byrnes, the lead presenter for this morning and the lead editor at LMBPN. Beside me, we have Lynn Stigler. And beside her is Jackie Scherer, one of our newer editors. Lynn is the former managing editor and decided she had had enough and tossed me into the catbird seat.
I'm still Michael Anderle and Craig Martelle's personal editor, so I keep my hand in the game. So.
Yes, she very much does. Jackie, anything you want to add for your information?
Nope, I'm just trying to keep up.
We threw her into the deep end. Folks, she came on board as a full-blown, full-time editor in 6 books. That's one of the fastest onboarding times we've had. So, why are we here today? To help you sharpen your editing and self-editing skills. This course is geared for editors and authors alike, whether you are ghostwriting, authoring your own content, writing blog posts, marketing content. All of those are areas that you want to sharpen your skills. Make sure your copy is as clean and concise as you can get it. What is clarity? Why does it matter? You want your books, your content to be readable. If you're writing stories, you want them to be compelling. You want readers to comprehend what you're doing without having to resort to exercising their Google foo. It'll take them out of the story if they have to jump out and look something up. Reader engagement. This is what drives long-term sales throughout your series and keeps your fans coming back for more and more. If your copy is getting too heavy, it drags down the story's pace. You want to keep them moving, keep them going, turning the next page. I'm sure all of that sounds familiar. Who's feeling called out? What are some things that get in the way of clarity? And this is the overview. We'll go into some examples in a few slides. Overusing words, phrases, and actions. You don't need to scratch the back of your neck 86 times in one manuscript, folks. Long or complex sentences. If your JITers, your proofreaders, your beta readers are going, what the heck were you trying to say here? Break it down, simplify it. Give them the bite-sized chunks so that they can easily move from one point to the next. Same with long paragraphs. You don't want to put people back in school where it was a wall of text. I'm pretty sure all of us remember our eyes glazing over with textbooks. Wordiness. No need to use 10 or 20 words when 2 or 3 will do. Make your point, move on. Consistently missing words or incorrect word choices. Your mind will read over a lot of things that are missing in a sentence. If it is the wrong word missing in a sentence, you're going to leave readers scratching their head going, what was he trying to say? I don't get it. Incorrect word choices can have the same effect. Sometimes those results are a little more hilarious. You don't really want to be throwing baklava around in your hair. I'm pretty sure you wanted to wear a balaclava instead. Punctuation, too much or lack thereof. All of that will get in the way of the story as well. If you are writing for different audiences, know which spellings of certain words are correct for your target. For an example, US audiences prefer the spelling toward, T-O-W-A-R-D. In the UK, it's towards, with an S on the end. If you're writing for US audience, drop the S, please.
And backwards and upwards and onwards and all of those.
Yes. All right, so now that we've identified that, how the heck do you figure out which mistakes you're looking for, and how do you clean them up? This is where we get into the meat and potatoes of things. Start by identifying overused words and phrases. Some ways you can do that: beta readers, proofreaders, ARC readers, all sending you messages going, hey, you really like that word or phrase, don't you? Check your manuscripts, your blog posts for common phrases, a bit, something like that. Okay, so you can do it, but you don't know what you don't know, right? We'll cover that. Another way is to get an extensive list of said words and phrases from a fellow 20-booker, your author network, or an editor. We got you covered on that one. There's a resource. We call it Weasel Words and Other Mistakes to Avoid. Folks, you're getting about 200 lines worth of an Excel spreadsheet. This is a free download, no strings attached, available for your use.
Address at the end of the presentation. There's 8 documents you'll be getting from us.
Yes. Obtain a copy of Strunk and White's The Elements of Style, 3rd edition, 1979, folks. It's the better of the two, even though the 4th edition is published. We got you covered on that front too, because right now the only way you can get it, short of searching the internet for a PDF, is to buy the paperback. They are available on Amazon from third-party sellers.
We're giving you the PDF.
Yes. All right. So now you know you've got your list and your elements of style. Now what? I can see it now. Eyes are glazing over at the thought of reading through that manuscript yet again. One of the pro tips we offer is if you are self-editing, set your manuscript aside for at least 5 days. Walk away from it, do something else, work on another story, work on marketing, do whatever it takes, put that manuscript aside and forget about it for 5 days. This is going to help your brain reset so that when you come back into it, you see it with fresher eyes. You will catch more mistakes that way. Another trick is to go back in and read your story from the back to the front. It forces you to see things differently. You will catch mistakes that way too. A third trick, if it's something that you are able to do, is to use the words read aloud function or another audio program. You can sideload your manuscript into your Kindle if you prefer and use WhisperSync. I have an author friend who does that. Some people can't do the audio version. Whatever works, it's finding the combination of factors that will allow you to produce your best work before you hand it to an editor. The other key part of this, set aside the time, budget for it in your revision process. It will take longer than you think until you get used to doing it. The next trip that'll help you streamline your process of reviewing your manuscripts. Meet the search bar, and it's its famous kissing cousin, the Advanced Find dialog box. These two tools should be part of your daily exercise in finding stuff when you go back to review your work. If you don't do it while you're doing a revision pass before you move to the next, you're definitely going to want to do it after the manuscript is finished. I recommend trying to break it in chunks because it's a heck of a lot more manageable that way. Smart Edit is another handy tool. Jackie has decided that she's going to move to using that after testing it out. She's enjoying the features. Our former family member and editor, Judah, who passed away earlier this year, was a wizard with Smart Edit. She made that program do things that we didn't realize it could do when we first tested it. So
Notably tell you have 192 instances of whatever it is, and it shows you where they are so that you can remove them easily. But
yes.
It is like a Grammarly type thing. I only ever try to use it at the last second, so I'm always swearing at it rather than utilizing it. So I haven't quite figured it out. This one has, so she's going to be our Smart Edit foo person.
Yes.
Smart Edit, don't they have Smart Edit Writer as a word processor too? No? Okay.
To know.
That would be a tool I would have to look up in order to answer the question.
It's an add-on to Word.
Okay. Going through a little bit more in depth, the search box in your Word document or other writing program that has it available will allow you to find a word or phrase and see how many times you've used it within a story. It'll also help you locate where you are trying to find a reference to a character, a location, etc. This is the fast way rather than scrolling through 352 pages. Advanced Find, also known as Find and Replace, You can replace all instances of a word with one click, or you can be more selective and find next to replace them one at a time. Both are handy in instances where you're trying to eliminate something entirely, or you need to find a certain version of and decide whether you want to replace or not.
Handy tip or trick, if you're trying to replace something that could or could not occur at the beginning of a sentence, you can, like if we don't capitalize the general when we're doing military fiction. I do HE space capital general replaced by HE space lowercase general, and that gets all of them without my having to do a second pass to make sure that T is capitalized.
Correct.
So,
There are several tips and tricks of that nature that you can go through and utilize to make your life easier going through your self-edits. And editors, it's invaluable time saver when you're working on an author's manuscript.
So when you do that, if somebody has the general's shoes or under the bed.
it'll fix that too.
It'll do it and it'll keep the apostrophe S.
Yep. An example of the search bar in action showing 105 instances of the word just in a single manuscript. This is not part of another word, it is strictly just. Far too many. You can guess that about 102 got reviewed and possibly 8 stayed in there for dialogue. Other examples that we see daily, one manuscript delivered 132 instances of so to begin sentences. It was like getting a hammer to the head every time I encountered it. And or but to begin sentences. Yes, it is a mechanism. Yes, it is usable. And in dialogue, it stays more often than in narrative. But be aware, those are usually higher numbers, and it's the same effect, getting hit with a hammer to the head. Be cognizant, try not to use them any more than truly needed, even with maintaining author voice. There are ways to get around using those 2 words. The other phrase du jour lately is, I mean. Folks, people talk that way. We get it. Watch out, though, because when your aliens start saying it, we raise an eyebrow.
Every single character in a book I recently edited started their sentences with, I mean, blah, 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 including every alien, the ones they just discovered.
Yeah. So, we understand that people pick up other speech patterns, but if you just met the aliens, chances are likely they're not going to open with that. Moving right along. Split apart long and complex sentences. We had a manuscript come in recently, and Lynn can speak to this one. 100-word sentence.
Actually, it was more than a 100-word sentence. I split it into 425s, which I considered still to be excessive. I am told that the author put it back. And then his just-in-time reader said, what are you doing? This is incomprehensible, but he left it. It's his book. I asked my name to be taken off the book. I don't want anybody to think that I would leave things like that he left in his manuscript. Not just that, but a lot of other things too, that he declined my edits. So.
Yeah. So that's an example of author choice, counter to advice from several people who have the book's best interest at heart.
Yep.
Your decision, our decision not to put our name on it.
Yeah. I've heard of it.
Yep.
Yeah, I haven't used it.
Hemingway, AutoCrit, those are all tools that are commonly used.
People get a set that they get used to. Should we just for a second speak to how we edit?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the way that we personally edit, order is a personal choice. I go through a manuscript by running through the entire thing with my eyeball, Mark 1 eyeball, as Craig Martelle calls it, and Grammarly open at the side to correctness only. I don't use clarity. I don't know if you guys do. Anyway, as I run through that entire manuscript, I'm catching things both with Grammarly and my eyeballs. Then the second thing that I do is go through at the very end, however many Grammarly things are left, I go through them backwards through the manuscript. And that gives me a new way of seeing things, and catch a lot of things that I didn't catch the first time. Then, and here's where personal preference comes in, either do a program called Perfect It, which does consistency in spelling, picks up missing punctuation, etc. And then Word spell checker and grammar, because grammar will catch things that spelling doesn't, strangely. And it's spelling words, but it catches things spelling doesn't. Tracey, I think, reverses that order, so.
Depending on how my spell checker is cooperating about loading, yes.
I haven't had any problems since I got an update in Word, by the way.
Yeah, most of mine have resolved too.
Oh,
but
good.
if you're looking at about 15,000 track changes, it does get a little finicky about it.
Yes, it does. Well, anyway, so that's how I personally edit. So each book gets a minimum of 4 passes.
Yes. And that is something that all 3 of us do on the 4-pass run.
Yeah. And by the way, we do that in between 1 and 3 days generally.
Yes,
So,
that is our average turnaround.
yeah.
Do you ever just go, I can't read this?
No.
Okay.
No, in fact, in LMBPN, we have a lot of new authors. We will end up rewriting a lot of things for them too. In that, we're not like a lot of editors. We don't developmental edit, we just bloody fix it.
Yes. Question?
Is this focusing more, it sounds like you're focusing right now more on like the copy edit, not the line/story edit.
We
Part
don't-
Before the copy edit part.
We don't differentiate. Our edits go through, or our books go through a process. The first and sometimes the second book go to beta readers. They identify story issues. Those get fixed before they ever come to the editors. So we are going to be focusing on a copy edit, and again, we don't do developmental edits, we just fix it.
Right.
So, which isn't to say we never do, but it's a rare
Yeah.
situation.
Question in the back?
You said there were like 4 passes you do, and within 2-3 days. Which ones take the longest, roughly individually?
First pass,
The first pass.
And how many hours or roughly?
depends on the book.
It depends on the book. We have some books that we can do in 14 to 17 hours, and others will take considerably longer because there's a lot more that needs to be cleaned up.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
And before someone says that can't be done, I can tell you that in June 2018, I did 20 books in that month, and they were 70 to 80K books or longer.
Yes.
So I can tell you, and yes, I was doing 16 to 18-hour days, but I can tell you that it can be done.
Yes.
And done well. We do not, we know which books those are. We don't get error messages about those books.
Yeah.
So,
We hold ourselves to an extremely high quality standard,
yes.
and it comes from me. If you slip on the quality of a book, you will hear about it. If I slip on the quality of a book, I hear about it. There is no second guessing. You do it right, and you do it the first time. If we need to go back in and polish something after the JIT readers have been through the final oops run, looking for typos or anything that got inadvertently missed when we accepted changes during the edits, we fix it right then and there. It's all done before upload, folks.
That's the wall of text.
Yes. Reinforcing, you don't want the wall of text because you will get that look. Wordiness. Kindle Unlimited counts not included. It is not your friend. Yes, you want to be able to get your page reads and you want your numbers from it because that's what's going to make you your money. But if you're going to put the words in, make sure they are concise and make sense. Example 1. That's all one sentence, folks. And it's not even the worst we've seen.
I have one author lately that's been doing, it appeared to be some type of, what does any of that add? You know,
Yeah. Besides trying to talk me around in circles so I have to stop and figure out what you're trying to tell me in the first place. We're not in here for the doublespeak unless you're writing a character that doublespeak is part of their persona, in
Yes,
which case,
exactly.
then I can see an instance of it. But it needs to be in dialogue, and it needs to be clearly established before I hit that point that this is the character's persona. No, I'm not referring to politicians. Couldn't be doing that. Wordiness not your friend next part. The insistence on making sure that they had someone who knew a thing or two. Shorten it up, folks. few concise words, move it along. Next example. Another one. This is all one sentence. Even worse, there is 0 punctuation until you hit the end of it. I ran out of breath trying to read this yesterday. Imagine what your narrator's going to do. Imagine what your readers are going to do. So now the question is, how would you edit it?
By the way, we edit all of our books as if they're going to go to audio because 90% of them do. So people can't go back and look it up. Think about that when you're...
It seems like maybe we need something that kills the signal and usual disruptors, and that's it.
Pretty much. Good job shortening that up. Next example. Figure this one out. Go ahead, have fun. Plenty of commas in this one, but there's a lot going on. Simultaneous actions that can't happen.
For those of you who know Rami Vance, this is one of his, and so I twit him about this stuff all the time.
Yes. So if you see him in the hallway, you're welcome to give him grief. Tell him Tracey said so.
Yes. Way to get wordy, dude. Yeah?
Uh-huh.
Welcome
Yep.
to our world.
Yes.
And this, can you imagine trying to dev edit that to have an author fix it? No, you just fix the darn thing.
Yeah. All right. This one is a trick to see what you do and don't spot. This is the one where your mind will automatically fill in missing words. This is a mild example. How many of you can figure out which word is missing in that first sentence? Correct. Easy enough to flip over on this one, but imagine if that was a critical word in the sentence that without it, it lost all meaning.
We have a ghostwriter who dictates, and he loses all his prepositions. I don't know why, but there's almost never a preposition to be found in his stories. Imagine missing all your prepositions. And he doesn't check it. Thank you very much.
Yes. Everybody's favorite, and this is another big one for those who dictate. Homonyms. They creep in on you. I have seen approximately 6 documents within the past 2 weeks that mistakenly used phased, P-H-A-S-E-D, instead of phased, F-A-Z-E-D.
Peaked, and peaked.
Yes. We have an entire list of the common ones that we've seen. You'll get that as the download as well. Speaking of using words correctly, how many of you have used ground and floor interchangeably and then tried to do the same with deck? Those of you in sci-fi, I'm looking at you particularly for deck. Folks, if you're on a ship, whether it's on the water or in space, you are walking on the deck of it. If you are on terra firma and you are going outside on a structure attached to your dwelling, you are on a deck, unless it's in the ground and you're calling it a patio. If you are inside, you are most likely on the floor. If you are outside, you are most likely on the ground. Now, if you put a parquet dance floor out in a park somewhere, okay, sure, I'll give you floor if you're dancing on it. The setting needs to convey that.
Also, if you're writing about ships, they're ladders, not stairwells, they're overheads, not ceilings, they're bulkheads, not walls. We fix all that for you.
Yes.
Because your readers will call you out.
They will call you out hard for that.
Yes.
There are phrases that play fast and loose with that general rule of thumb.
Yeah.
Getting decked, being floored, flooring it, classic punishment, you're grounded.
Yeah.
Several others. We have
Venture from using that replace all key.
Yes. Then you get into your punctuation polka. It's a tool. Use it well, folks. Don't let it become a crutch. We have writers who are emotionally attached to their em dashes and semicolons. We have some writers that criminally overuse colons and commas. And the big one we've seen a lot of lately is felony charges for misuse of ellipses.
They don't replace commas. They shouldn't replace commas.
Correct.
Ever. They have their place.
Yeah, and did we mention commas, by the way?
One of the conventions we don't use in LMBPN is my brother, comma, David, comma, because when you speak, there's no pause there, and a comma is to indicate a pause. My brother, David. Our motto is we don't need no stinking commas, unless you really do. If you want to pause in your sentence, put in a comma. If you don't, just because your third grade or your sixth grade teacher told you you needed it, don't use it.
Question in the back.
Teachers said when in doubt, leave it out.
Yes.
Wish I'd had your teacher.
I actually edit for a British woman, and she is, speaking of criminal overuse of commas, I had to do a global to take commas out of there because the Brits put commas in everything. No offense to anyone who's in here from the UK, I love you, but your teachers need to have a smack upside the head sometimes.
Oxford comma.
Yes.
Yes.
I love it. Great. I thank you. When I don't see it, it takes me out of the story.
Yes.
Unless I'm reading a blog post, newspaper, something short, timely, written within a very concentrated noun.
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Oxford commas are not your enemy, folks. Think about it this way. If you were to invite JFK, Stalin, and the strippers to a party, there are Oxford commas in that sentence. Without that Oxford comma, you get the strippers, JFK and Stalin. Could be fun. I'm not going there.
I've seen the visual. I can't, there's no brain bleach.
Yes. There is not.
Speaking of commas, one of the big misuses we see is not terminating dialogue before there is another sentence without a dialogue verb in it. Blah, 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 comma, he sighed. No, sighed is not a dialogue verb. Breathed, laughed, none of those are dialogue verbs. So you need to terminate your sentence before that. We have a global to fix that because so many people do it.
Yes. Delete unnecessary qualifiers. Again, a lot of this is narrative, but it's applicable to your dialogue too. It goes back to the overuse. As soon as she could, paused for a moment, as quickly as possible, stood up or stand up, crouched, ducked, or sat down, called out. You don't need a lot of that. You sit, you stand, you crouch, you duck. You do something or you do not do it, or you hesitate and then do it, but make it clear.
Then along with that is began to or started to. There are instances where you need it, and I actually left it yesterday. She started to walk away, then turned back and said something else. But you don't start to smile, you smile. If your lips go up, you're smiling. You don't begin to run, you run. You just don't need those extra words in there, and especially not every single sentence.
Yes. There are exceptions to stood up or stand up. If you stand up to bullies or you stood up to bullies for past tense, if you feel called out by something, or if someone calls you out for a duel, those are exceptions where up would stay in there. Otherwise, it comes out. Adjective order. There is a proper order in English. It's called the Royal Order of Adjectives. The correct order is quantity, opinion, size, age, shape, color, origin or material, qualifier, and then your noun.
If it looks awkward or you feel like you have to put a comma before the adjective, it's likely that you have them in the wrong order.
Right.
Black long hair. It's long black hair.
And then another favorite of ours, misbehaving body parts. Your hand doesn't just creep over to do something by itself, folks. You have to initiate the action. Your eyes aren't roving around the room, they're firmly in your head, but your gaze can wander around to look at people and things. Your head doesn't suddenly decide to do a 360. You have to physically move. And if you can get yours to do a 360, I want to see it on camera. Because you got something really funky going with your spine if you're human.
Or you're in The Exorcist remake, for the two.
Yes.
But the other thing is, I can just see you guys going, oh, well, no, I need it, almost as if on its own, your hand creeped over to something. Yeah, sure, you set the stage for that. But the hand doesn't just creep over without, the hands don't have a little brain in them. They don't really do things on their own.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Her eyes roved around the room, and you just get, I don't know, Pinky in the Brain scenario of eyes wandering around the room. Oh, favorites.
Yes, this is Lynn's favorite, so I'm going to let her address present participle phrases.
Okay. Everybody does this, and I think everybody does it because they see everybody else do it. Simultaneous actions that cannot take place. Walking across the room, she closed the door. Walking across the room, she sank to her knees. We want to see that one on video. Although Groucho Marx kind of did something like that. But if they cannot, you cannot laugh. Well, you kind of can laugh and smile at the same time, but you can't frown and laugh at the same time. He frowned laughing. I've seen things like that. You can't do that. So I had this one author who was simultaneously writing actions, and I would get cramps trying to duplicate them, just trying to see if you could actually do those things.
Yeah.
Then she got mad when I fixed them. So it was like, no.
Another fun one I ran into several years ago before I joined LMBPN was somebody was staring while sneezing.
Yes.
Folks,
no.
you cannot keep your eyes open while you're sneezing. I've tried. It doesn't work.
Anyway, we have a document on that too, and it will give you examples and how to test if it can't happen at the same way.
Yes.
Well, and even when they can't happen, I feel like I just see this construction so much. Like you can, like she picked up her coffee smiling. Like you can do those at the same time, but if you're doing that like every sentence, it just starts to sound like a song.
She turned over in bed, slipping off the bed. No, maybe you turned over and fell out of the bed, but make it clear what's happening.
Yeah. Another example. If you want to try exploding into a cough while you're sipping your whiskey, give me a warning so I can get 10 feet back, please.
And have the video on.
Yes. Exactly. That's alcohol abuse.
Yeah.
Trying to roll your eyes while you're closing them.
And can I just say, rolling your eyes into the back of your head, that gets old really fast.
Yeah. By about example number 1.
Yeah.
Rolling your eyes, fine. Back of your head, if you're having your character pass out and fall to the floor and somebody happens to see the actual action, sure, I'll give you that example. Don't overuse it. Action in the middle of dialogue. Lynn briefly touched on this earlier with terminating dialogue before something happens, such as laughing, breathing, smiling, etc. The other consideration is, do you need the action interrupting your character speaking? Because that's essentially what it is. You and I are talking, someone runs up, jumps in, says something, and runs away. Do you want that happening in your story? Does it move it forward? Is it effective?
There are actions that do need to happen in the middle of dialogue because they are spurred by the first piece of dialogue. However, that's rare. That's not every sentence.
Right. So take it on a case-by-case basis. Look at, does he need to shrug in the middle of the dialogue? If yes, fine, leave it. If not, consider whether it's better at the beginning of the dialogue or at the end of it. Here's an example where I left it in the middle because it was emphasizing something that was going on earlier in the paragraph. It was also a case of the author mistakenly wrote it without terminating the first part of the dialogue.
And put a butt in it, so we had to truncate the butt.
Yes.
So, yes.
This is where we extend the offer for all of you in here. If you choose to meet with us one-on-one after this session, we will be available today. We have time available tomorrow as well. We will sit with you and look at a page or two of your manuscript and give you some pointers for what we would be looking at for editing. This will help you sharpen your skills and let you go back and view things with a fresh set of eyes. So if you want to take advantage of that, come see us. We don't bite much.
And rarely strangers.
Yes. This is where you can get all the handy resources we've noted throughout on this presentation.
Can you bring up the page just by,
Not on this, no.
okay.
Is all this in the documents you made available to download?
Everything we've covered is in the materials we're making available to you. Folks, a lot of this stuff we don't normally send out of house. This is our gesture to all of you to help you improve what you're doing. We like to see good stories. We want you to tell good stories. We want to see you succeed.
It may, in fact, get you a lesser rate from your editor if they don't have to fix so much of your stuff. We have what we call hazard pay edits. Those are the ones that we end up rewriting. So, because some of us are paid by the hour and some of us are paid by the word, and if you're one of the ones that's paid by the word, you need a hazard pay edit. No, Diana, you're not a hazard pay edit.
No. No.
It's one of our authors.
Diana tells engaging stories, and
She
there's
does.
rarely much that I need to cut out of her stuff.
She does.
Diana is also very cognizant of the value the beta team offers and insists on all of her stories going through the betas, not just a book one.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I've seen the before and after, and she takes their feedback to heart.
I learned that in the very first manuscript I ever wrote. My husband said, "You can't kill this character," and I did it. And so you really should. It's important.
Well, and then there's always the famous Michael Anderle advice: never kill the main character's love interest. You'll spend 4 books writing. You'll have to write 4 books to apologize for it.
Yes. We have a couple of
And bring
people
them back
lined
from the
up for
dead.
questions, and we have about 7.5 minutes, so let's jump in.
Okay, so this might be a different type of edit than you do, but I'm curious if you do an edit for getting the most impactful version of your sentence, or how would you advise an author to handle that in their line edits?
What I would look for first is to cut out anything that doesn't move that sentence forward, and that is often a combination of line and copy. Sometimes it also involves proofing if you're a person who isn't necessarily the best with spelling, and there are people out there that we understand that. In terms of how you would do it first, sit down and think about how you are phrasing things.
Ask your editor, too.
Yes.
You know who that's going to be. We should say that at LMBPN, most of our work does not go back to our authors. They have learned to trust us over the years, and so it just goes straight to publishing after we edit it.
Yeah.
So we know, we've talked a lot to them. Do you have preferences for this? What would you prefer we use this construction if we have to change it, et cetera? So they're never going to see it again. If you as an author came to LMBPN and you wanted to see your work back, that's obviously completely possible. And then the book is on you. Once you've made your changes, it goes to it goes through JIT and then publication. But usually we would make the changes for you. So in that case, we would ask you to ask us ahead of time. And we operate on Slack. So we are pretty much always, this one never sleeps. I used to be a night walker, but now I'm a day walker because I just got back from Europe. So, but anyway, so one of us is always around, so people ask us questions all the time.
Yeah.
So,
And it truly is a matter of building a relationship with your editor.
yeah,
You know, once we understand what you want to do, we take that into account going with the edits.
yes. And we preserve your voice at the cost of our sanity sometimes.
Yes.
So,
Do you prefer, like, I do romance and I do, like, you know,
Multi-genre.
multi-genre?
Yep.
yeah.
Next question at the mic?
Hi. Does LMBPN offer your services as a standalone, or is it part of the whole publishing package?
No. We do not do standalone services outside of the company.
We actually don't work for LMBPN. We're a consortium that is outside of them.
Yes.
So nobody actually works for LMBPN. We're all contractors.
So I have a question about dialogue specifically. So I know with dialogue, in order to give characters voice, a lot of times the mistakes need to be preserved.
Absolutely.
But how far is too far with that?
If it looks like a typo and it's going to get you reported to Amazon for having a typo in your work, which you want to avoid at all costs, I would suggest you change it.
Okay.
But people use incorrect, grammar incorrect, I's doing this, you's doing this, I apostrophe S doing this. I had that in a book yesterday, and all that stays.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have characters from one author that are down in New Orleans. They speak Cajun. There is a whole lot of dialect going on. It stays.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
In fact, our just-in-time readers will often say, I know this is dialogue, but this would sound so much better if you fixed it. It's like, yeah, no, sorry.
Nope, they usually get a response from us in the document that says dialogue, exclamation point. And that's the end.
Now, what about if you're writing from a first-person perspective with that same character that's got the that, you know, when they speak a certain way, should the prose parts also contain some of that voice, or is that something that throws readers off?
You know,
First person in the narrative tends to take the character's way of speaking, but not the dialect.
Okay.
You want to be a little more correct in the narrative just because it is them speaking as the narrator. But that doesn't mean they can't retain all the sass, spunk, ways of speaking, sarcasm, etc., that they would have in the dialogue. I have an author who does write first person present tense. Her stories are funny as hell. Readers love them. And there is very much the sense of sass, and we do get a few made-up words in there that creep into the narrative, but they suit. She also is careful to limit how often she does that.
I will take it, I'm a little bit sterner on that. I do not believe narrative is time for a first-person character or a third person, which I have one person that writes that way, to go into a soliloquy. If you want to do that, have them think the sequence rather than have it be a piece of narrative. So
Yes.
I tend to cut out curse words, etc., that the narrator would not be using. That's the character who can do that in their own mind or when they're speaking, but that's not part of the narrative.
I was trying to think, like, first person, the narrative, that's how your person, like, if they were writing the story, but you don't want all their verbal tics in the narrative. Like, I say like all the time, but I wouldn't write it. So my speech might have it, but my narrative shouldn't.
Correct.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. We have one more at the mic, and then we'll be out of time for this session.
Yeah.
This is a silly question probably, but, oh, and thank you so much. You guys have been so informative. When I'm writing like or oh or I'm going back and revisiting it because sometimes they're longer or shorter, but does it annoy you when you see O with O-H-H-H or M-M-M-M or H-M-M-M-M? Do you have a like?
Depends on how long you extended them for.
AWW, yes. AWW ad infinitum, no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
usually two, like MMM or UMM. Like,
OOH.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
We
not
have these
O-H-H.
characters called Prickleichis in the Kurtherian Gambit universe, and they growl everything, and that gets so tiresome.
All right.
So we're a little bit jaded about it.
Yeah.
I bet. Thank you
Two,
very much.
usually a max of 3 if you're going for the added emphasis, but typically 2 is 1 to 2, depending on whether it's a short or a slightly longer.
Just do one thing for us, please. Don't say, damn it, she cursed. Or, she hummed. I've had that. No.
Yes, we see a lot of it.
At least do, damn it, she exclaimed.
All right, folks, thanks so much for coming in today. We'll be around for some questions. We'll be stepping outside the room to clear this for the next presenters to come in. If you want to arrange a time to sit down with us, we'll be moving out into the Grand Salon.
Yeah.
We'll pull up a chair, pull up a laptop, and take a look at what you've got.
Yeah, we're happy to. Or if you catch us in the halls at another time and you want to meet with us tomorrow, that's fine.